this right? And hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
That's the demo.
All right, go ahead. Start presenting. All right. So what you just saw was our Wick demo. And this is our May status update with our brand new Wick logo. So as you can see, we've been working on a whole bunch of things this past month. So we were really excited to show you what we've been working on, some of the processes that we've been going through, and also a little bit of our playtesting data. But first, we want to start on social media. So this past month, we've kicked off our social media, and here is our Wick the video game Twitter page. We're getting pretty close to 100 followers, so I'd say we're getting pretty popular. But we've had some decent traffic so far, and just this week, Alpha Beta Gamer ended up writing an article about us. Really cool. They got like 57,000 followers and about 200,000 subscribers. And here's the article they wrote about us. But the big thing from this is that they linked our playtesting, our playtesting link, the contact form that we showed the last status update. And since this article has gone live, we've added just nearly 60 or so playtesters, and now we're close to 200 playtesters total, which is great because now we can increase our playtesting pool for the next couple playtests that we plan on doing until the end of the project. So in the same vein as social media, one of the coolest things that we've had, honestly, is the Unreal Engine called us a wicked idea. Pretty bad pun, but if Unreal Engine is saying it, must be true. So going back to our May status update commitments, this is what we showed at the last status update. And we've made a few adjustments, as we usually do. So we've done a couple animation adjustments, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So this is what we were able to get done and completed. Some more notable things was the first pass of the collision detection and also a playtesting tool, but we also were able to get a whole bunch of these things done as well. So first pass of Mara reaching under objects that you saw in the demo, first pass of the head bouncing, rework based on some feedback for Legione, so a whole bunch more animations from Mara and John, and also our playtesting survey. So feedback. As we always have started everything, single one of our status updates is always starting with feedback. Now, we didn't get any feedback in the last status update, so we sought out our own. We had Zoom playtests with Ron, Hez, and Rick all playing the game in real time, being able to have real comments from them, talk about design, see them play the level, and basically come up with other ideas that we could do for the game. On top of that, we also have received a ton of feedback from playtesters. This is just some of the feedback that we have received so far. It's about 4 pages, and we probably have another 3 or 4 pages of just text for one of our open-ended questions. So obviously, we're not going to be looking and trying to solve every single one of the things that these playtesters are mentioning. However, it's really important for us to go through everything and figure out the things that are important to us and things that are not. And we're going to explain some of those things in a little bit here. So for our May status, we're talking about feature development, special announcements, playtesting pipeline, bug testing, June playtest, and also our June commitments. But first, we're going to show some of the comments that we've received from the playtesters. People thought our aesthetics were really cool and really enjoyed the game. A lot of it was because of the aesthetics. And we wanted to push our already great looking environment even further. One of the comments says, great creativity, good aesthetics, good feel. Good luck, I see real success for this game in the future. And then, of course, with remote playtesting, you'll get comments such as, why isn't there a hotkey to make the candle nay-nay? All things that we have to do with the remote playtesting. However, again, we really wanted to make sure that we're pushing our aesthetics continuously and that we don't get complacent. So one of the big things that we did that you saw in our demo was our stained glass. We first started out with a lot of research in stained glass. And one of our developers has a lot of experience making real stained glass and worked very closely with our 3D artist and provided some documentation in order to help explain the stained glass effect as well so that they could create these pieces as accurately as possible. So we basically started with creating designs focused on general shapes, but also note here that each design is based on our narrative and represents either hope, despair, or a mix of both. Stress lines were added and the design is refined. The stress lines are accurate to real stained glass and each design can be recreated in real life. The design is put into 3D coat and roughness and an uneven normal map is added to give depth to the design and more color adjustments are made. Now this is the point where we start sending the assets to one of our tech artists who happens to be the same tech artist that makes stained glass in real life. Before we get to the stained glass in the engine, the design is then taken into Photoshop and edited to create textures for our light functions. And again, here are all the different pieces in designs that we had for the stained glass. Again, all these go back in our world building for us. The textures are used to make 3 light function materials per window for red, green, and blue channels. 3 spotlights are placed in the exact same location, and each is given one of the light functions, creating the glass effect that you see on the ground. Now, we were looking for other games that did similar things with stained glass. We found games such as Borderlands, Dragon Age Inquisition, BioShock Infinite, and Assassin's Creed. Borderlands is the only one with any sort of light on the floor. Not even Dragon Age has lighting on the floor, and that's considering the fact that stained glass is a core visual aspect of Dragon Age. The Dragon Age and Assassin's Creed stained glass could be made in real life, but likely because they are just historical copies and they're not original designs. So looking at the stained glass from AAA games and Wick putting right next to it, we're the only ones that put an imprint on the ground based on the colors of the window. We make glass to be accurate to how glass is made via the stress lines, and our glass can technically be made in real life, and they are all original designs that also fit our world and narrative. It is also a great way for us to add color into our levels since it is so dark and it gives a good contrast for our level design. Now moving forward with more playtesting data, where do I go? We as playtesters, did you ever get stuck without knowledge of where to go in the level? We had a near 50-50 split with people getting stuck and not knowing where to go and people not. For this is unacceptable for us. We obviously need to bring this percentage down, and we've implemented some features that we'll be playtesting in June to help alleviate this. One is the wax pools. You probably saw this in the demo. Wax pools are exactly what they sound like, big pools of wax. John can walk on top of them and gain wax and also hide his trail from Mara. So now we're going to talk about the design considerations when we were actually creating this feature. Some of the design problems that we were trying to solve with the wax pools were, it did not really matter that you were melting. The wax globs are not as easily tweakable to scale difficulty in the future. Players are getting lost in the level, as I just mentioned. And there weren't enough ways to trick Mara. Now for our wax pool solutions. The wax pools allow us to raise the rate Jean melts so that players cannot just sprint through the levels. It also can help balance how fast you melt, how much wax you gain, and where you are safe. It helps guide players through the levels, and we saw this consistently while playing with the faculty. They all love the wax globs. So we want the wax pools to be the same effect and help guide the player through the level. It also allows players to hide their wax trail from Mara inside of the wax pools. In the same vein as getting lost in the level, we have some problems with our gates, specifically this gate. We thought it would be intuitive for players to know, hey, I'm a tiny candle and I can fit through these holes in the gate. Well, here's Ron completely disproving that fact.
All right. Well, I guess I'm supposed to continue going right. Yeah. So remember that because like that table had the invisible collision box where I couldn't go under the table. I actually assumed that would be the case with this.
Yeah.
Right. So it's important to recognize that I assumed there'd be an invisible wall with this just because this wasn't permissible. So
The collisions have been reworked all over the level to help alleviate this fact. But we still had people getting lost, so we wanted to make it very obvious to the player. So when we were making our gate assets, because that asset that you just saw was just an asset pack, here is our gate that we made. And to help guide the player, we needed to make something out of the ordinary on these gates. So these were the variations of the model that we made. It's not just a consistent gate anymore, and players will go towards these things, as we suspect. And again, we'll be playtesting these features in the future, and then we'll have more data for you at the next status update. Playtester 0007 said, stealth games are kind of tough for me. The archetype stealth game is Metal Gear. One thing those games have is extreme clarity about when you're in cover and when not, mainly by the fact that you stick to the walls plus a solution radar. Wick doesn't really have that yet. Cover feels squishy. Well, the big thing that we stuck on in this comment was that one thing those games have is extreme clarity about when you're in cover and when you're not. So, as you probably saw again in the demo, we've tried to find a way to solve this. But first, before we could even make this feature, we needed to look at other games that did something similar. And we looked to Assassin's Creed 4. When players walk into a crowd, their characters and the other characters in that crowd go black and white, signifying to the player that they are stealth and hiding. Well, what we wanted to do was take that a step further and make it very obvious to the player that they were hiding from Mara. So now when John Wick goes underneath Hidey Holes, we vignette the screen and we desaturate the midtones. But we keep the high tone saturated, mainly for the fact for specific colors to still be visible to the player, such as Mara's VFX that you see in the background. You still see it when you're underneath that chair. So it allows the player to always know where Mara is continuously, even when they're hiding, and still getting that effect. Now, moving forward, playtester 0113 said, another note on the wax dropping trail. It wasn't clear how that was being followed. And again, with playtester 777, it never really felt like she was following my wax trail, just like she was walking towards me. Well, that's a big problem, and we knew that. And when we start talking to people about design properties for figuring out when you feel like you're being followed or when you're not being visible to Mara, everyone goes to UI for us. And we want to completely disagree and turn your attention to Little Nightmares. This has been a game that we've looked at since the very beginning, the first status update. We think that we can do what Little Nightmares does, where they have no UI on the screen and that's all they need. What we really want to do is use John Wick himself as a diegetic UI source. We want to do things such as, if you're getting low on wax to signify to the player that you're about to die, we can do a flickering light. We want to do things with his wax trail, his wax on his body. There's a lot of things that we want to do to tell the player what's going on in the game without having to put UI in the screen. So what we've done is we've had a wax VFX to allow the player to know when Mara's following you. So now we're going to show this in isolation. This is what we're using to show the player that, hey, Mara's following you and you better get into a hidey hole. So again, we'll be playtesting all these features in June, and we'll get back to you with more feedback about where we're at with this. But on the same vein again as Mara following your wax trail, we had another gameplay problem. It was that your wax trail wasn't relevant at all in the game as it was previously. Mara can follow your trail, but nothing happens at the end of the trail. And it's mainly because most wax trails inevitably lead to a hidey hole where Jean has complete immunity, nullifying the whole scary effect of her hunting you to begin with. But now we've come up with a Mara reaching under solution. And this is something that we've talked about in other status updates that we haven't really explained too well. We want to make sure we do that now. Mara reaching under the feature will allow Mara will follow Jean's wax trail to a hidey hole. And then Mara will then grab underneath the hidey hole in hopes to snag Jean. You probably saw this in the demo in this first little area where inside the chapel where Pat tried to run for Mara and she threw her hands underneath the bench. But the main thing for this feature is that it gives consequence when she actually follows your trail to a hidey hole. This will not be in every single hidey hole though. The feature is developed so that LDs can choose which objects they want Mara to reach under and which ones she does not, allowing us to scale difficulty depending on what data we get from playtests. Now we want to show this feature in isolation. It's pretty spooky to me. It's going to be a lot scarier than we think, that Mara can then still grab you in hidey holes, but still gives you enough time to try to make your little feet escape. Now, again, with the March status the May status update, you notice that we had the respawn animation red, and we said that we're going to talk about that. This is because of this Mara reaching under feature. The Mara reaching under feature adds another animation that was not on our list initially. And the big thing for us was that we did not have access to the mocap studio right now. If you remember from previous status updates, Mara and Jean's animations mostly or almost all mocapped. And the big thing is that we have to hand key this animation of Mara reaching under, and it needs to look just as good or in the same style as the mocap. And that's really difficult. So we've been spending extra time with this animation, and what you're seeing is a first pass with our animator who worked with Jonathan, the animation professor, to get draw overs and feedback to make sure that this animation can be as perfect as possible and will flow really well with the mocap. Also, the Mara reaching under animation was a priority over the respawn, mainly because of the dependencies, where programmers needed the reaching under animation to begin proxying out the functionality of grabbing Jean from underneath a hidey hole. And this animation added another 30 hours or so of animation to our pipeline because of it. Don't fear though, the respawn animation will be in the June status update as it is being worked on currently as of this week. Now we're going to move to our Studio Whip announcement. We're really excited about this. Wick will be launched on Steam. We've already gotten started with that process, and here is our beta page store. The faculty probably know this already, but we sent the build out. The faculty are able to play the build from Steam, and we're preparing the Steam store during development. And again, we are delivering builds to the playtesters and also the faculty using the Steam store setup. We are doing this through the use of Steam keys that we then request from Steam, and they give us a whole bunch of keys, and then we can give those to whoever we like for playtesters, faculty, whoever. Now to note here, we asked on the survey, did you play over Steam? And nearly 75% of the playtesters have played over Steam, and they seem to really enjoy the fact that they can just use their Steam to play. So we are really happy. I think we made the right call with this, and we will continue to use Steam as a delivery source for the playtests. It's also cool to note that we are building for both Windows and Mac, and both of these builds are available to the playtesters. This will be inside the Google Drive link that we send to the playtesters and also the Steam link because they had the option of which way they wanted to play. Playtesting. So here was the goal that we had for the last playtest. We targeted May 18th for the build to be released to the players with 35 people selected from the pool, and about more than 50% of them being ones with game dev. And mainly we were testing distance to Jean, the player locomotion, and also action block specific questions. We hit that May 18th delivery date head on. But in reality, this whole playtest for us was just a big test. Will remote playtesters actually play the game? We wanted to develop our playtesting pipeline, and the big thing for us was how do we ensure that they can make it through the whole game, as we have not started testing for difficulty yet. And we're really happy to say that we asked this question, did you make it to the thank you for playing screen? And nearly 95% of the people who played the game made it through every single part of the level that we were playtesting. And we added some specific features in the game for the playtesting build to accomplish this. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So when we started gathering the playtesters for our remote playtest of our game, we knew from the beginning that there was no guarantee that that we would even get people to play the game and also take our survey. Because of this, we put multiple things into place to help alleviate this, as well as knowing that the first play test could give less data than we even expected. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things that we did to help ensure that we make this as foolproof as possible for the first play test, and we know what to change for the next one. Starting with Mail Meteor. It's a really cool mail merge function, just like you can do with Outlook and Excel. This works really well with Google Sheets. And the cool thing about this is that we can send our individual playtesting ID and also their Steam ID or their Steam keys directly to each individual person. And it allows us to see who has clicked the email, who has opened the email, and who is not even interacting with the email that we sent to them, allowing us to weed out the playtesters that just signed up and then aren't going to interact with the team, so we don't waste our time and waste our Steam keys with these players, and that we can continue to retest these players that continuously give us feedback. Now we're going to talk about how we prepped for this playtest. We got 3 different branches in our Perforce: a blueprints branch, a level design branch, and also an art branch. These get pushed to the dev branch. Now, everyone on the team and the dev team works on those 3 branches, and then as things get completed and pushed, we move it up to the dev branch, and then we test the features. First, we need to really make sure that there's no crazy bugs or anything, but the dev branch is mainly for this. We expect there to be bugs in the dev branch. That's what it's there for. We fix the bugs in this dev branch, and then when we have a quote-unquote clean build, we send it up to our main branch. Now, the main branch is supposed to stay bug-free always. Supposed to. Off the main branch, we have a Steam branch, and we also have a playtesting branch off of that main branch as well. Now, we're showing you this because we wanted to show that we isolate the playtesting branch from the other 3 branches, or any of the branches that the actual team has access to, so that we don't interrupt their development while we are preparing the playtesting branch as well. And then we can add the playtesting specific features that, such as like text for tutorialization, that we aren't going to have at the end of the game. So now we're going to talk about our pipeline. We content locked 4 days before we shipped to the playtesters. So we content locked on Friday, and we shipped out on Monday afternoon. We got everything merged to our dev branch, and we started checking for bugs and fixed known bugs for a clean build. We then merged up to the main branch and then to our playtesting branch. And now this is where we started implementing our playtesting specific features. 2 of these specifically are implementing playtesting replay system and the UI for playtesters to be able to input their playtester ID so that we can track the replay system with the ID of the person. We also implemented, again, gameplay specific features such as the text in the beginning to explain the game and the controls to the player, because we aren't testing tutorialization as of this time. Also, to allow players to move through the level, you saw that about 95% of the players made it through the entire game. We added a feature so that if you die multiple times at one candelabra, we automatically push you to the next candelabra, so that if it's too hard in one area, we understand that, and then we can move you to the next candelabra so that you still see the rest of the game, and then you don't quit after the first 2 minutes. We've also combined these 2 things into one completed build, and then we prepare them inside of Google Drive and also Steam, again for both Windows and Mac OS. This pipeline does not even include our email preparation and also the survey creation. Along with this, we had to test multiple people for our entire pipeline before we even sent this out on Monday. We tested everything from the beginning of the first email that's sent out to the survey, and we used we recorded our family and friends who had never played the game, never seen the game. We sent them an email and basically said, "Good luck, go through the whole process and see." And that worked really great for us to make sure that no one was getting stuck on things. But we got some pretty funny videos and recorded videos from the people and friends that we playtest before we actually did the real playtest, such as this.
Just get the crap out of me. If you're going for a jump scare, you definitely got me there.
That's hilarious. And as you saw, you probably maybe hopefully jumped a little bit in that area. But our favorite playtest that we saw was our faculty advisor Tom playing the game on Twitch.
Oh, that wax. Mmm. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. My heart just jumped. Take a breather here for a second while my wax drips.
Now, Tom is always very hard on us, as everyone else can probably expect. But he's just helping us make the best game that we possibly can. And to get him to jump like that was a pretty big accomplishment for the team. But again, this whole pipeline was made to ensure that no playtester would get stuck in an area or confused by the documentation that would stop them from giving us data. Now for playtest number 2 that we're doing in June. We're targeting June 15th for our build shipping to the playtesters. We're going to do about 70 playtesters selected from this pool because of how many more playtesters we just got in the last week. Less than 50% of them will be ones with game dev experience, with the goal of testing gameplay, specifically Legione, Mara, player mechanics, and also the melting mechanics. Technically, all 4 of those features all work in tandem, and they also were built in tandem, meaning we want to playtest all these features because if we change the melting rate, it also will affect everything else in the game. Bug testing. If you remember back, we talked about Zoho Bug Tracker in the last status update. Well, we were going to be implementing a bug testing feature in the next month that will have a dev key that can be pressed to report bugs directly to the team from inside the engine. This will be sent directly to Zoho Bug Tracker, and it'll you can hit the button B, and then you can type in a bug. And it'll give a description of the bug and a link to the playtesting file. This is really big for us, and we'll be doing a bug testing session hopefully in June. Now for our June status update commitments. We're going to be doing more animations for Jean, and a really cool thing is the John Flame sizzle that we're going to attempt to do just for Ron, where you can, when you walk under different objects, you get a little flame sizzle VFX to show that the flame is hitting that object. We'll also be adding some jingles as well, so that when things happen inside the world, you can hear little piano keys or something happen to show interaction to the player. We'll also have a completed Mara reaching under, completed head bouncing, completed wax pull, and also a completed attack. All those features will be ready to go for the next status update. We'll be finishing tutorialization in the rooms and also reworking action blocks based on feedback from the playtest. Now for us, June 15th is our target to hit alpha. We're very close, and we can start doing these fun polished things that we have in mind for the game to make it even better. So we're really excited that we got to show you all this. This is Wick, we're Studio Whip, and we'll see you guys in the next month.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Went a little bit longer than usual. I think that clocked in at about 40 minutes. And I'm going to try to keep us on track because we've only got an hour break between the end of the status update presentations and the Iron Galaxy open house. And I'll give people a chance to go get lunch. So with that in mind, with us all trying to be relatively quick and efficient, let's see what Hez has to say.
All right. Good job, guys. I'm just going to say everything really quickly, and that way everyone else can go. I love the implied bugs are attracted to light. I don't know if that was a thing, but it was cool that the Legiones, they stayed in the light when you first interact with them, and then when you go underneath the bench, you put on your doubter so they don't attack you. The wax effect is cool where Mara sees you. It turns into flames. I thought that was really cool. I think the breathing needs some variety because hearing the same breathing sound clip over and over again gets kind of annoying. So that could just be me, or that's just my feelings on it. I think it needs to have some type of variety, maybe some coughing in there just to break up the constant her gasping for air. I want some subsurface scattering on the candle because John Wick looks a little flat compared to the flame. And if you look at candles, you have subsurface scattering at the top of it. I think the new area felt a little drawn out. Just me, my opinion is very dark and long, and I started to like lose interest really quickly. It felt like there was no like true direction to that area, and I saw that you pushed the debug a few times, which shows that it may have the players die multiple times before they even get a chance to complete that. So there might need to be a little more guidance inside there just so players can know where to go at inside the space. And that might be the reason why you had 75% or that higher percentage of people saying, this is hard for me to find out where I need to go at, just because that new area is completely different than the rest of your area inside the game. There isn't even a build up to it. It's like I can see, then complete darkness. Why can't I see the misses of Mora when I'm underground? Like before, she had misses around her mouth when she's close, but when you went underground, you can no longer see that. I think that needs to be consistent throughout the game. I think it's cool that you have your game on Steam. I think you're the earliest one. Faculty, correct me if I'm wrong about this. I think you're the earliest ones that have had their game on Steam in the middle of the summer and not at the end or during Venture Track is when you had to implement. Cool that you have it for the Mac. That's it that I have to say. I'll talk to you guys more about it later on if you want.
Wow. Hey, you should do legal disclaimers. All right. All right. Let's move right along. Alyssa, you got any comments for us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So awesome stained glass idea to break up the colors. I thought that was really cool. I'm excited to see how it gets polished. Game as a whole looks fantastic art-wise. Loving where the lighting is going. Just careful about some of the cones being super obvious, easy to fix, which is massaging the inner cone radius and intensity. I actually agree with Hez on a lot of what he said. New part felt a bit long. I would just maybe introduce some triggered events to kind of keep this area lively. I like that Mara properly grabs Wick now, although she's still slippy slidey, but I think you touched on that. I like the iterations on the gates with the little holes at the bottom, and then awesome job on getting a jump start on Steam and being that organized and ahead of the game.
Again, we're just blowing through these. You can do legal disclaimers too. That's awesome. All right, Ron, this will be the challenge.
Yes, well, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to share my notes on the screen so that you can read the rest of them later, and I can give you the file, whatever. And then I'm only going to talk about the ones that I've highlighted, okay? So let me share my screen for a second.
And we can talk with you later like we did last time.
Yeah. All right, you got the notes? You see the Word
Yes.
doc? Okay. I'm only talking about the highlighted ones so I can go fast. The light play through the back windows is so good. It's so perfect. I love it. The animation to create the little buddy, it does look like he's vomiting to do so, so be aware of that. The Mara squeal was a little bit over the top, but I like that you went that far, and now you just got to pull it back a little bit. So it's really kind of a compliment that you went that far. Terrific use of claustrophobia in several parts in the middle of the demo. That was fantastic. The foreshadowing of those creepy, cool, bone jumping, platforming thing that you were doing, the foreshadowing of that by having a single hand that appears with you when you do that teleport over to that section was absolutely brilliant. I adore that idea. That was extremely premium design thinking with that. I loved it. The huge stained glass, those look fantastic, those windows, and I like that you described the detail of that, which is very impressive. It did make me wonder what's the climax of this game. As we approached that room, I felt like there was this big momentous event that was going to happen, or this climactic story elements, and then I'm like, well, what would that be in this game? I don't know what this is all leading to, so it's not for you to answer now because we're going fast, but how does this end? And I have a lot of ideas about how that might happen myself. I'm sure you have even more than I do, but it's something that you should give attention to. Give names when describing a team member's work. Give them that credit and that honor. The cover indication that you were talking about, keep it on easy only. I like the idea that it can be a challenge to keep away from her, and there's a tension in not really knowing if I am in cover, and I've got to be on my toes. And so I think for the hardcore mode, leave that in place. The color change may be too subtle. It may also not clearly convey that you're in cover or not. It's really thoughtful to have Mara reach for the player, but make it consistent. Because sometimes if she does versus sometimes she doesn't, I think that players would be miffed by that and be frustrated when she does because they think, oh, maybe she won't, but then she does. So have her always grab for the player, and they got to get out of there when they're in cover. Huzzah for launching on Steam. That's my last comment. The other ones are there for you to parse as you wish, but this is awesome. awesome, awesome game. I am extremely impressed and had so many oh my goodness moments through your play of this. I'm extremely impressed. Great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it tight too, but I had a lot of notes, and about 90% of them were just positive, just a bunch of superlatives. Yeah, this thing is freaking incredible, and I'm going to stick by my comment from a previous status update. You guys are headhunting Plushy Knight and Hollowed, and it's looking more and more like you might actually displace them and become the new king. This is freaking awesome. So with that in mind, anything that I say is really just I'm going to get super picky so that you can actually get over the top, because I want to see somebody topple the king. I want to mention that last status update, my biggest concern for a couple of status updates, I suppose, has been gameplay, and I really am happy with what you guys are doing, mostly in terms of balance, rather than trying to mindlessly knee-jerk and just add new features. You're being really smart about taking the features you have and making them work better. So I like that. However, there were still several places in the game where you spent a long time running and there really wasn't anything going on except you running. And I think there's an opportunity for you to take some of these really now well-balanced and smooth and fun gameplay mechanics and find things to put in there. We also heard the suggestion of maybe some triggered cinematics or things like that, whatever. But you need to break up those stretches where you go a long distance without really doing anything. And in a sort of similar vein, like early on when you started doing the demo, Patrick just sort of ran in circles for like 15 seconds straight. And at first I thought there was something broken, and then I thought maybe Patrick had been drinking. I don't know what that was all about, but please don't do that again. That was just really weird.
That was the show that so you could get low.
Yeah,
then...
that's great, but like don't do it for like 15 seconds straight. Like,
okay,
there's just nuts going on. I was like, what are you doing? Stop that. So you also mentioned that you had those sparklies coming out of the ground, and that is your cue to the player that Mara is on the wax trail. And I noticed them a couple times, and I was not making the connection that, oh, Mara is seeing the wax trail. And maybe because the first time I noticed them, Mara wasn't on camera or she wasn't doing anything obvious. So I just saw the wax in the ground, red sparkly, and I was like, oh, that's cool. What did that? What just happened? I didn't know. So I like the idea, but you got to be careful about how you introduce that to the player, because I was not making the connection. So yeah. But overall, I mean, lots of really cool things. One of the things that I just wanted to mention, even though I said I was going to stick to just the little things that I thought you could improve, I could actually see the gameplay improvements. Like, it's not like you didn't have to tell me. A lot of the gameplay improvements, the balance and the polish that you're putting into it, I could see it. It actually felt good, and I just love that, because often people have to explain when they've made adjustments. I don't think you mentioned that you increased the player character's speed. I don't recall you mentioning that, but maybe I'm just crazy, but it felt like you guys are running at a much more satisfactory speed this month than in previous months, and so I really like that. All of the little polish improvements that you've done to it, getting the lighting for the stained glass on the ground, and I think that's all just, you guys are showing just in a great visceral way that you get tone and you are just selling out to it. And I think that's actually, to me, the most awesome thing that I've seen. That's kind of one of the things that those games at the top that we always talk about, is to just get that tone. You just get a feeling. This game just has soul to it. It's not just pretty graphics. Seeing all the sound effects and the little polished things, and this is just a really good accumulation of details that are all kind of taking straight aim at that tone. Do more of that. That is just awesome. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up from there, and let us